This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose. Welcome to Well Worth It, a health and wellness podcast. My name is Mirella and I am your host. I am a wellness coach, vocalist, soulna, sound and energy healing practitioner, and sound healing facilitator. In 2015, at the age of 31, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a condition I was told might lead to a disability that had no cause or cure. I was given no hope of recovery. However, through countless hours of researching and choosing to take control back of my own health, I found different perspectives and found that this was simply not true. On this podcast, I will share what I have learned and implemented along the way for my health and wellness since my diagnosis that has kept me well and thriving. It is my mission to empower, inspire, and teach you how to play an active role in your health too. Investing in your own health and wellness is truly well worth it. I know this firsthand. So if you are someone who is experiencing symptoms, dealing with an unknown diagnosis, chronic illness, disease or condition, or you simply want to learn how you can get back in the driver's seat of your health, this is for you. It is my obligation to share with you that the information shared on this podcast is purely for educational purposes only. All information is based on my own personal experience and represents my opinion and the opinions of my guests. It is not intended to replace the necessary measures of your primary healthcare providers, therefore should not be taken as medical advice. Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Well Worth It. I am so excited to be here with you and I thank you for showing up and listening to this episode. So to begin with, I'd like to share why this podcast is meaningful to me. And the reason why it is so meaningful is because it allows me to have purposeful conversations around health and wellness from different perspectives. And I believe that we are generally not educated around other options when it comes to health and wellness unless we search for the answers ourselves. So I hope that by sharing what I have learned and implemented in my life since being diagnosed with MS plants a seed or sparks some curiosity in you. And I would like to begin this episode by chatting about my diagnosis and the lead up to my diagnosis and sharing a little bit more about my story if you haven't heard this before. So in 2015, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and prior to this, I thought I was a healthy individual. Even though I was experiencing symptoms, I really didn't think that there was something going on at a deeper level. So as you can imagine, waking up one morning and not being able to see properly out of my eyes and having blurry vision really took its toll on me. It actually was such a traumatic experience for me, and I just didn't know where it came from. However, looking back now, prior to my diagnosis, as I said, I was experiencing many different symptoms, especially around my menstrual cycle, and I was experiencing headaches, I was experiencing bloating, gas, I was experiencing cramping. I constantly craved foods that aren't necessarily good for us. And just in general, I didn't think I was an unhealthy individual. I rarely drank alcohol and I didn't smoke cigarettes. And so I really thought I was a healthy individual. However, after dealing with many different symptoms, such as those that I've just described, I was also experiencing jaw issues. So I had TMJ and I was experiencing pins and needles. And I also used to say to my husband, I feel like I have a vibration feeling in my body, but I didn't think anything of it. I would actually just go to the doctor and I would basically just tell them what I was experiencing, and then they would prescribe something to help me or just basically tell me what to do. And then I just didn't think anything of it. I just continued on with my life. And it wasn't until I woke up that morning and wasn't able to see out of my eyes that I really began to question what was going on. And so it took a couple of days to actually go to the general practitioner and try and work out what was actually going on. And so to begin with, they thought it was migraine related, and then they decided to send me off for a CT scan. And it was at this point that I just didn't know what to think, and I was so worried and I had so much fear about what was going on because my eye hadn't resolved. And the results from from the CT scan came back, and my general practitioner said to me, I think it's best that you cancel your trip to Europe, because at the time my husband and I had booked a beautiful white Christmas trip to Europe, and he said, I think it's best if you go and see an ophthalmologist. And so he referred me to an ophthalmologist, and at this point I thought, okay, this seems like something serious, and I was just so scared and worried about what was going on. And so I ended up waiting for the ophthalmologist's appointment. However, I was just so in fear that I decided to take myself to the optometrist to see if they could shed some light. And unfortunately, they weren't able to see anything. That all my results came back normal. So I thought I'm just going to have to actually wait to see the ophthalmologist. So the ophthalmologist appointment came around and they checked my eye and diagnosed me with optic neuritis. And when I asked the ophthalmologist what that was and how that was caused, he basically said that it was inflammation of the optic nerve and that the most likely cause was multiple sclerosis. And I recall walking out of the clinic and walking to the front doors of the clinic and just falling into my husband's arms and crying. And life as we knew it had just completely been turned upside down. I knew very little about multiple sclerosis. The only thing I recalled was actually participating in the MS Readathon back in primary school, and that was to raise funds for people who lived with disabilities. And so our life was basically turned upside down, and I no longer knew how to envision our life, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And so after the results come back from the ophthalmologist, I was then referred to a neurologist. And so, I had gone from not going to the doctor regularly for my blood tests to going to all these different appointments and trying to figure out what was going on. So it was absolutely exhausting. I was in so much fear, constant fear, and I ended up going to see the neurologist, and they performed some more tests and they did an MRI and they confirmed that I had multiple sclerosis. And so the journey began on how to manage my MS. I remember my GP saying to me, you'll be fine, you'll just need to manage your MS. And to be honest, I really didn't know what that meant. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to do what they tell me and it should be fine. And so the neurologist I was referred to then referred me to the hospital. And the reason for that was because I was 31 at the time, and he believed that if I wanted to go ahead and have children, it would be best to actually work with the nurses and the specialists at the hospital. And so I was referred, and then I met with the neurologist there, who then once again confirmed that I had multiple sclerosis, and I was just crying at the appointment, and I just couldn't believe what was happening. And so when I was at the appointment, the neurologist asked me 3 questions. He said to me, do you smoke? Do you drink? And do you want to have children? And so the first 2 questions were easy to answer because obviously I rarely drank alcohol and I didn't smoke. However, the third question I thought was very strange because I was like, why are they asking this question? And so at the time, my husband and I had just started talking about having a family, and it wasn't something that we had decided on yet. So I just said, we hadn't decided on this, and then found out the reason why they were actually asking this question is because the disease modifying therapies, so the prescription medications or the drugs, actually have side effects and can affect the embryo and can create birth defects on the fetus. And so I couldn't believe that this was going to impact the decision to actually have a family. And so at this point, I was sent home with disease-modifying therapy brochures, and I was told to review the pharmaceuticals and decide which one I would like to take and to look at it as if it was an investment in my health. And I went home, and I remember sitting on our couch and looking at these brochures and thinking, how am I going to choose what medication to take? And every time I tried to look at the brochures, I just started crying. I just didn't know what I was going to do. I've always been the type of person to not take medication. So for me, looking at these brochures and knowing that I would need to take this medication for the rest of my life was so challenging, and it was traumatic for me. And I remember it taking me at least 2 or 3 weeks to actually just be able to look at the brochures. And so I ended up deciding on a disease modifying therapy, which was Copaxone. And so this was a daily injection, and the effectiveness rate was 30%. So a 30% reduction in relapses. And it was the safest medication just in case we wanted to have a family. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to take this medication and continue on with life. And I decided that I would not share my diagnosis with anybody apart from my immediate family and my manager at the workplace that I work for, in order to help me assist and navigate this diagnosis that I had received and the prognosis that I was given, which was basically my life would look different, that my disease would progress and eventually possibly cause a disability. And so the other thing I was also told was that, I was diagnosed with relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis, which meant that at any point I could have a relapse. So I was living in so much fear, and I am so grateful to be here today to say to you that I actually consider my diagnosis to be a blessing in disguise. Even though it was such a traumatic experience to begin with, I have learned so much since my diagnosis. I have implemented so many different things in my life, things that I was not aware of when I was diagnosed. And I'm here to tell you that there are other options. And this is not just for multiple sclerosis. This is for chronic illnesses and any other condition that is managed with a medication. There are other options out there, and we're not generally educated about this. So I feel so passionate to show up here and to be able to share about these topics and share more about my journey and speak with the individuals that were a huge part of my journey and that have helped me to get to where I am today. I also had such a supportive network. I had my husband and our families and our loved ones and our friends who really supported me along the way, and even my work colleagues. I eventually ended up telling my work colleagues. So it actually took me about 5 years to talk about my diagnosis, and that is okay. I look back now and I think, at the time I felt so much guilt and I felt so much shame that I wasn't able to speak about my diagnosis because I am such an honest person. So this was actually really challenging for me to navigate. And these lessons that have actually led me to where I am today, to be able to sit here and actually share this information with you, I feel so grateful to be able to be here to support you through your journey in whatever journey you are going through. We live in a society which is go, go, go. It is so busy. We are constantly on the go. But I'm here to tell you that if you are experiencing any symptoms whatsoever, it is your body's way of communicating. It is the body's language. And we really need to stop and think about why these symptoms are appearing in the first place. And we can heal. That's the other big message which I would like to share on this episode. We can heal. The human body has the amazing ability to heal if you support the body well. And when I say support the body well, that is through diet, exercise, stress reduction, toxin removal, rest, emotional balance, scientifically backed supplements, and a success mindset. And it is a holistic approach. We are all so different and so individual. So we should not be referring to one particular diet to be able to help us heal. We are all so different. One food that affects someone in terms of sensitivities may not affect you. So it is so important to understand how your body functions and what works well with your body, really listening to your body when it is telling you something. For me, I also had fungal spots, and this is my body's way of telling me that I had candida overgrowth, which isn't recognized in Western medicine. So looking at other types of medicines and really taking an integrative and holistic approach has been something that I have focused on for the past 6.5 years. So it was 2 years into my diagnosis that I started to really take control of my health and started to do my own research and looked for other people's success stories and really was reading and watching these videos. And, I went with what made sense to me, that, I actually couldn't understand how there could be no cause or cure. Like, I didn't understand that. That didn't make sense to me. So finding other people's success stories and looking at what they were doing and what they were finding that was helping, I took this and then implemented it in my life in a way way that I felt right for me. And I used my intuition. I used my intuition to let it guide me to what was going to be the best course of action for me. And, I have learned so many things along the way. I have met so many amazing people. I am part of so many beautiful communities. I am so grateful to be surrounded by amazing people. And this is because I have surrounded myself with these people. So if you do not have a supportive network, I really encourage you to reach out to others around you, or reach out to me and touch base and come and be part of our communities. And, when we are in these different communities and we are around people who light us up and who lift us up, this is when our bodies begin to repair and heal themselves. We need to be in that high vibration. We need to really shift that mindset and know that we have the ability to heal. We have the ability to heal. I know this firsthand. I am so excited about the latest MRI results I received. And after 8.5 years, it was the first time in my results that I had a decrease in my brain lesions. And this is unheard of. This is not something that is commonly spoken about, but there are people out there that are in remission, that have recovered, that have reduced whatever condition they're dealing with, that have reversed their diagnosis. And for me, this has been a focus for me over the past 6.5 years. It is focusing on how I can recover my body and then being able to share this with others and just letting you know that this is an option if this is what you want to do. So here I am showing up. Thank you so much once again for joining me. I look forward to having so many more purposeful conversations and introducing you to my network and the people who have been part of my journey, and also having conversation with others who are in the health and wellness space who are seeing results. So thank you so much once again. Take care, sending much love, and see you soon. Thanks for listening to this episode. Life is all about the choices we make. You can choose to take control and look after your health and wellness. Choose to love, choose to surround yourself with amazing people, choose to be grateful, and choose to be mindful and kind, as you never know what someone else may be going through. Choose to live a beautiful life. Remember, the choice is always yours. Has this episode planted a seed or sparked some curiosity in you? Let's keep the conversation going. Join our @wellworthit.podcast Instagram community page, or stay in touch via my personal page @mirella.petrucci, and be the first to know about new holistic offerings I have coming up. Also, please show some love by rating and reviewing this podcast on your favorite listening app. To your health and wellness. Until next time.
This is a Guide Your Light Network production, creating podcasts with purpose.